Against the Current is sponsored in part by ServPro of Appalachia and Laurel counties. When fire or water damage takes over your life, trust the team in green at ServPro to help you make it like it never even happened. They provide 24/7 service when you need it most. Give the local office a call at 606-877-2160 or online at servpro.pulaski-laurel-counties.com. Franchises are independently owned and operated.
Today I'm joined by Mr. Colby Hall. Colby is a lifelong resident of Eastern Kentucky who recently found a great opportunity to move back to make a difference. That opportunity was a position of executive director at SOAR, which stands for Shaping Our Appalachian Region. SOAR is a regional nonpartisan nonprofit that champions local projects, programs, and advocacy for the 54 ARC mandated counties in Eastern Kentucky. Their mandate is easy. It's to fill the economic gaps left by the decline of the coal industry. Their task is to rally our communities to help them achieve these goals together for the good of all. So, Colby, this is, as we mentioned before, this has been a long time coming. I think we've had this scheduled about, maybe 3-4 times and had to reschedule thanks to, like everything else, COVID. So, how are you?
I'm great, Adam. I'm great. And it's great to be here. As I've said, I've listened to several of other episodes of guests that you've had on. So I appreciate the invite, and everything happens for a reason. So those delays brought us here now, and I'm looking forward to a really engaging conversation with you today.
Absolutely. I want to say the first time I reached out to you maybe was, end of November, first part of December. I know we had scheduled in January, I think maybe again in March, maybe in April. So we finally got there. It's the important part. So
yeah, that's right.
Probably, as you're aware, like what I like to do is try to do some rapid fire questions, kind of get those creative juices flowing and kind of see where you stand on some hot button issues here. So first question I always have to do, because I don't ask you this, I'm going to be in trouble with my boys at home, and I have to know if you're team pancake or your team waffle.
Waffle. Crispy waffle.
There he is, right there. Good answer.
Yeah.
As we're recording this, so last week I attended an in-person insurance conference in Northern Kentucky. So, listeners are probably saying to themselves, an insurance conference, that sounds miserable. B, why am I even bringing this up? So here's why. So for the first time in about a year and a half, I attended an in-person conference with 70 to about 100 other grown-ups. And let me just say, that was good for the soul. I love my boys, love my family, but man, being able to get together in person, talk shop, and just seeing other grown-ups was good. So brings me to this question. As some different mandates are being lifted, we're starting to get a little bit back to normal here. What's those one or two things that you're looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think sporting events obviously that's going to be a big win. And I would say, I live near Pikeville, Kentucky now, and I think just the ability to have just convenings and gatherings, in downtown areas. Of course, Somerset has many of those. For small towns, you don't really get a sense for why they're so special when everything like that's shut down. So I would say sporting events is at the top of the list, and just having the ability to convene and gather through various different events kind of in the area where I am. I would say those two things I'm looking forward to most.
I like that. And of course, I'm sure you've seen too, obviously downtown Somerset already has had a couple of events here, and obviously more on the agenda for this summer. So really, really looking forward to that and being able to get back to those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last couple things here. What's been maybe a favorite book and or podcast you either listened to lately, read lately, or just something that's on your top list of, hey, this is what you need to read or this is what you need to listen to?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I mean, I would consider myself a reader. I've always enjoyed reading. Wish I read more, probably could do better with how I manage my time, but I'm a big history guy. And for those folks out there, I love the Alexander Hamilton biography by Ron Chernow. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Chernow. He's a really famous biographer. It's what the hit musical was based off of for those folks. So if you like the musical, which is amazing, spend some time listening to the story of Alexander Hamilton, who's one of our probably lesser known founding fathers. Most folks, if they know about him, before the musical, at least some people probably knew he's on the face on the $10 bill. But a lot of what folks don't know is just how accomplished this guy was. And I would argue is a big reason why America grew into the economic superpower that it is today, had it not been for a lot of the key initiatives that he led kind of in the aftermath of the Revolutionary War. So I'll always recommend, if there's a book or somebody asks me for one, I just was mesmerized by his story and what he got accomplished. And I forgot when he died. Obviously he died young, right, in the duel. But what he was able to get done kind of made me feel guilty, like I needed to pick up my game a little bit, quite frankly. So that is definitely at the top of my book list is Hamilton, the biography.
You bring that up, it makes me a little bit worried for our generations, maybe here in about 15 or 20 years when people start bringing up Alexander Hamilton or just that name Hamilton, and everybody's gut reflex response is going to be, oh yeah, that musical.
Well, let me tell you what though, Adam, the musical was
founding father
really well,
and everything else.
It was really, really well done though. So if folks had to, if that's the medium they had to use to get to know a founding father like Alexander Hamilton, quite frankly, I'm pretty good with it, because from what I saw, it seemed to be pretty factual with the biography. So yeah, a little bit maybe a shifting taste, but hey, as long as they know about him in some way, shape, or form, I think that's better than not knowing about him at all, you know.
And I didn't mean to get off on this tangent either, but hey, I mean, if you go back to what was it, mid-90s, look at Forrest Gump. I mean, if you really get down into it, there's a lot of historical, factual data that's going on there that you can really learn.
Yeah, well, you at least can learn some of the order of events and things. And yeah, you're right. The stuff that Forrest Gump covers is kind of in that weird period. I'm sure you're around my age. I mean, it was like the history that you didn't cover a lot in school because it was kind of recent. So you didn't talk a whole lot about the Vietnam War or kind of the 60s and 70s. You kind of stopped at World War II, maybe a little bit after. So the stuff that Forrest Gump covers too is stuff that we didn't live through, but we really didn't learn about either, right? You just kind of heard about it from your parents, maybe.
Exactly. Well, Colby, the last question here: love to win or hate to lose?
I hate to lose. Yeah, that one. And I think I feel like the episodes I've watched, most everybody said hate to lose. But that's definitely hate to lose for me.
I like it. You're very convicted in your answer. There's no doubt about that. I like it.
Well, yeah, I feel like when you compete against yourself, it's less about the stuff that comes with winning, which, you know, listen, I like to win too, but what keeps me up at night is if I tell myself I didn't do as well as I thought I could have, or if I lost because I didn't put forth a great effort. That's when it's hard to sleep, you know. So I think definitely hate to lose for me.
And I'd say you're probably similar like this with me too. Is when you have brother or brothers too, it just kind of a natural tendency where you're just going to be even more competitive. It's just part of it.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
Well, Colby, first thing I would want to talk about here is just I'm very interested in it because I just found a lot of really neat parts of it. But I want to talk about your journey from boy growing up here in Somerset to now your position leading one of the most impactful, I think, economic nonprofits in the state of Kentucky. So talk through us about that kind of where you started to where you are now and how you got there. It's not exactly your straight path to that position.
No, it's not. And, I guess always, well, I'm born and raised in Somerset, right? And, proud SHS grad, but, obviously was always really proud to be from Somerset and Pulaski County. And, growing up, I had an opportunity to do and see a lot of cool things and be exposed to a lot of cool programs. I have two great parents that have taken really good care of me. And so, in high school and then in college, I went to UK. I just always felt like a lot of the cool stuff that I got to do, you didn't meet a whole lot of other folks from Eastern Kentucky or Kentucky for that matter. And so, it was always something that I just kind of naturally came into and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but that I was always kind of the flag bearer, or carrying I was the representation or the image of Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, small town Kentucky, rural Kentucky, however you want to label it, going up against folks from the coasts, the big cities, whatever the case was. And so I carried that with me, and I was really proud of that. And so deep in my heart, after I graduated from UK, I always knew in some way, shape, or form, when the timing was right, that I felt like my place was going to be back in Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, doing something for something that was bigger than myself. Putting a lot of my strengths, talents, hustle into something that I felt like was benefiting the region as a whole. So, I was originally on my way to medical school and kind of had a last minute shift. I ran into an entrepreneur on UK's campus, and kind of challenged me to think about a pathway that I hadn't thought about before. I mean, you know how it is, Adam, and this isn't a bad thing, but when you grow up and you do pretty well in school and things like that, you tend to kind of loop yourself in a couple of buckets, whether it's medical school, dental school, lawyer, right? And again, we need we need those people. Don't get me wrong, but when I came across this path of essentially being an entrepreneur, doing something different, it was kind of a earth shattering kind of moment for me, something that I hadn't really thought about. And so I took a year after I graduated. I went and taught English over in Spain, which was a pretty awesome year. I look back on that, and it was made a lot of great friends. It was in a really small community, actually, so there were a lot of similarities to where I grew up in Somerset. And so when I got back from that year, I pursued a career in sales in Atlanta, Georgia, mainly in the technology startup space. And so I kind of worked my way up in a sales career there in Georgia, just from an individual contributor up to leading a team of 10. And the opportunity at SOAR presented itself last year. 2020 was kind of crazy, right? Obviously, everybody knows that. And so it presented itself towards the end of the year. Felt like the timing was right. I went at it with everything that I could bring it. Was extended the job and offered on the spot. And so back when you originally reached out to me, November, I was in the middle of moving back up from Atlanta, trying to get settled. I'm technically a Floyd County resident over here in Eastern Kentucky, but our office is in Pikeville, and then obviously we service 54 counties across Eastern Kentucky. So super excited to be here, but I always felt like, even though I was in Atlanta doing the best I could there and making a lot of good connections, that I was supposed to land back in Kentucky one day, whenever that opportunity presented itself. And so we did, and I kind of went out with everything I had, and here we are today.
Well, I will say too, just so I don't forget this, and not to put any additional pressure on you, but my brother-in-law said ever since before, I mean, gosh, you probably would have been in Spain at this time or even before then, that one day Colby Hall is going to be president of the United States. So no pressure with that. But
wait, are you talking about Taylor Gover?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yep.
Taylor's, gosh, we were together. We grew up, had a ton of stories with Taylor. He was always the smallest of the group we ran around and younger, but man, he was a ball player for sure. So that's some really high praise coming from a guy of Taylor's caliber for sure.
I want to back up to just a little bit about your story about teaching in Spain. So my wife, Morgan, she got to teach in Spain too. She only got to teach for, I think it was about a month. She was in Barcelona teaching, of course, elementary school kids. Now, were you teaching elementary kids as well? Or
yeah. So I was at like just a public school. I wasn't far from Barcelona. I was on a little island off the coast they're called the Balearic Islands. And so I was at a public school there, but their infant education, I'm not sure what Morgan's experience was, but they start when they're like 3. So I had like 3-year-olds up to 6th graders was kind of the range of kid, which, is great because, I mean, it's crazy how sharp even 3-year-olds are as they start to learn a different language, and how, you can just see how skills change. But again, I was dealing in a community that had never met anybody from Kentucky before, really didn't meet many Americans. And so, it was a lesson there was when you have the opportunity to tell folks about Eastern Kentucky, the natural beauty and our history and the people that are a blank slate, that don't have any preconceived notions about a region or what to expect. it's really easy to fall in love with kind of where we are and what we have to offer. And so, I joke with people. I've got a community or a group of kids running over in Spain speaking Kentucky English, right? And definitely sounds odd because they've got a strong British influence there, and so there was a lot of formal British English, but not in my classroom. We kept it a little less formal, and I gave them some pointers, some colloquialisms to say that are pretty unique to Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky. So, I mean, those kids though were fantastic, and they came from great families, and so it was really easy to fall into a really good situation there because the people were so great. So it was an amazing year, that's for sure.
I'm glad to hear that. You're good English.
Yeah, they learned the right English.
Yeah. I mean, I will say too, of course, I don't want to get on a tangent on this, but obviously their education system over there is it's almost mind blowing when you compare schedules for 3-year-olds up to 6th graders there compared to what our education system, and not necessarily a knock on our education system, but just you understand how, the different, all the languages they learn, all the topics they have throughout a school day. It's incredible.
Well, I will say the one thing that they struggle with there it's relevant to our conversation today is internet was a pretty big gap on the island there. I had it in my apartment pretty good. It was fiber internet, so it was really good. But the school, pretty much it was never functional. And so you talked about trying to plan lessons and things like that without access to the internet. It was really hard. You had to kind of bring stuff pre-downloaded on a zip drive or whatever the case was. So I got a pretty early taste of, from an educational standpoint, what happens when you're teaching a bunch of kids and you don't have access to the internet. It makes your life a ton more difficult as an educator, I think.
No bringing up any YouTube videos and trying to fill time there.
Well, we just had to get them pre-downloaded a little bit, but only relevant YouTube clips, right? So maybe the UK fight song and some Kentucky Derby Kentucky Derby finishes, and maybe some when Kentucky won the national championship in 2012. Just all the real important stuff.
Nice, I like it. So you took away. Well, I won't say you took away, but that one of my questions for you after that was just going to be a follow-up of what was your biggest takeaway. But I think you knocked it out of the park there about just your experience there and what you learned from Spain and your teaching abroad, and now what you've been able to implement now in your new position. So I've given the 50,000 foot view of SOAR. Colby, give us, for the listeners that aren't familiar with SOAR, or maybe just know just a little bit there, give us the who, the what, where, when, why, all that.
Yeah. Well, I think you did a pretty good job of opening it up, and so I think it's important, kind of the who, what, when, where, why of SOAR. So, we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit, special regional organization that's focused on helping 54 Eastern Kentucky counties find their way back to prosperity, specifically following the collapse of the coal industry. And so you talk about the why behind SOAR, really kind of started in 2013 when, coal's been kind of on the decline for a while in our region. As with any, if you go track any commodity or any economies that are very commodity based, there's always fluctuations that happens as prices, for raw materials go up and down. But I think what was different in 2013 when Congressman Rogers and then Governor Steve Beshear kind of corralled everybody together, it was really the realization that it was never going to come back at the level that it had been because, it was facing natural gas. Natural gas was coming in droves as fracking and really horizontal drilling kind of made the United States the new swing producer for crude oil. That unlocked and untapped these vast reserves of natural gas that from a competition standpoint, coal just couldn't compete. And so the 2013, I think, was that realization that this has been the base driver for the economies of so many individual counties and communities for so long, but we've got to find a different way. And what a lot of folks don't know is coal jobs it was especially devastating because for every coal job that was lost, given the nature of coal mining and the amount of services and vendors that were dependent on coal mining jobs, about 3.3 other jobs were lost around it. So the moment that 10 coal jobs or a coal job was lost, the full effect was felt kind of slowly in an excruciating way as 3 other jobs down the road were lost around it. And so, you're left with, over time, what some people are saying is that you look at the start of the decline from the 90s going into the 2000s across the region. Some people are say up to 100,000 jobs total when you factor in some of those other factors were lost. And so for a region like Eastern Kentucky, I mean, that's devastating, right? And so, but if you were to ask me, what is the one problem that SOAR is ultimately trying to solve, and what I think is the one problem that every county in Eastern Kentucky, if you talk to a county judge executive or a mayor, what everybody would agree is the one problem they're trying to solve is population loss. Depopulation in our region is a big deal, because as people leave, right, it just becomes drastically more expensive to provide basic services. So, I would say at the heart of what SOAR is not only just trying to, create this new path forward for how Eastern Kentucky wins in the digital economy, but I would say first and foremost, it's how do we keep obviously our best and the brightest and our folks in the region to be able to live, work, raise family, invest here, but how do we continue to attract new people to move to our region? Because we just need people, Adam. We need people. If we continue to shed population, I'll give you a real quick story. This is pretty crazy. I was visiting with Pike County's judge executive last week, and he pulled out a paper from, and I forget what the title of the paper was, but it was the paper in Pikeville and Pike County, 1977. And it was a quote from a University of Louisville economist that said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it said by 2020, Pikeville is estimated to have 150,000 people in it. This was written in 1977, right? Projecting out to 2020. The population now is a third of that, right? So you can see, the history of in the past we were on this crazy rise, and it's we've got to figure out a new way forward, because all the projections have kind of fallen. So we're at this pivot point, and so at the end of the day, we've got to try to figure out, get the people and the population right. And I think SOAR's after that, and everything kind of is built around our initiatives, our programs, our priorities are built around how do we keep and retain the best and the brightest from our region so that they can at least consider staying home, right? I'm not saying that we force people, but give them the option to say, you can stay here and still thrive professionally, to still grow in your career, right? But also, how do we make it a place where we get a net influx of people looking in? So I just think population loss is ultimately what we're after, and what most local officials kind of keeps them up at night as well.
I think you've got a lot of great points there. And of course, obviously a census was there was a big push on completing the census and getting that information for obvious reasons, like you mentioned there. Our community leaders need to know as close as they can what kind of numbers are we talking here? Are we having, like you said, are we growing? Can we grow? What are we looking at? Are our numbers declining? And then, like you said, focus on getting that population growth in, because obviously that's kind of the wheel that kind of keeps everything else spinning. Is if your population is growing, obviously there's more tax revenue, and everything else kind of falls in line with that you're able to generate and attract new businesses and everything else that goes with it. And like you said there too, the plans you guys are putting together, I think SOAR has done an incredible job putting together the blueprint you guys have. And so it's the 7 steps of basically SOAR's mission is to make all this work. So let's go ahead and start first, obviously, with the number one that I've seen you guys put a lot out. I think our governor's put a lot out on it. Different community leaders and state leaders all around it have really been pushing this, and it's internet connectivity, broadband connectivity, and completing the very short survey to really help you guys be able to identify and help grow that base. Talk to us about that and kind of unpack that, because there's several things interesting to me, including that so much broadband in Kentucky that we don't even know where it is.
Well, yeah, it's gosh, Adam, we could have a couple weeks of material just talking about this one topic, but I'll start it by saying this. I think this is the most important problem that any of us will ever solve. I truly feel that way. I think if the closest thing we can get is imagining, being back in the 30s and 40s when rural electrification was coming into play. And I mean, imagine living in a home without electricity. I mean, imagine, transporting the time when that was an option and being debated. And that's where we are. I mean, broadband, if there's anything we've learned from the pandemic last year outside of that, the only positive or only constant in life is change, right? I mean, is the fact that broadband is critical infrastructure for so many different applications. And so it's life or death. I mean, it's life or death that we get this done right in Eastern Kentucky. And so here's kind of where we are. So the Kentucky Wired Project is something that we've been involved with along with our partners at the Center for Rural Development and numerous other folks across the state. And so we have I think it's about 99% complete, but we have a middle mile backbone internet structure that there's physical fiber, so physical fiber strands where internet flows through all across 120 counties, right? And why that's a big deal is, that's a tremendous asset, because ultimately for you to have internet at your home or your business, your internet has to come from somewhere, and it's the middle mile that delivers ultimately what gets to your house and in your business, right? And so that middle mile backbone is done. And the heart of what the Kentucky Wired Project was to make sure that our unserved communities across rural, eastern, western, but hey, I'll say this, even our urban areas like West Louisville. I mean, West Louisville and Eastern Kentucky have a lot in common when it comes to connectivity problems, because it's a lot of the reasons, it's the same fundamental reasons for why we have unserved, underserved areas. And it's because it's hard to make a market case for private companies in areas where their ROI is not going to be as healthy as in other growing areas. And so Kentucky Wired was brought into existence to make sure that we had an answer for that. And so the middle mile's done. Now, the hard part and where we are now is on the last mile piece. And so that is actually kind of the ramp offs from this middle mile backbone that gets internet to residents and households all across the county, right? And so you can imagine, I mean, listen, I work in Pike County, is the largest county in all of Kentucky. Pulaski's third, right? So, I mean, it's a daunting task to think about, fiber to the home or fixed wireless, some of the technologies that we have, getting it out to people all across the area. But here's why the speed test is important, Adam. We're going to have more money thrown at solving this problem than ever before, and probably ever will. I mean, it's the hyper polarization of the political landscape today. Broadband's one of the few areas that you see that is just really, really bipartisan. Everybody agrees that they want to get high-speed functional internet to as many Americans as they can. And so last mile is where that happens, right? And so the speed test is important, though, because broadband maps, it's not like sewer or gas lines. You can't call 811 and understand where broadband in this community. A lot of this stuff is held pretty close to your chest because it's not considered public and proprietary. So a lot of times we don't know where broadband is or isn't. I mean, anecdotally, we've got a pretty good idea of where areas are that have good internet and bad, but nothing definitive. And so the speed test is a way around that problem, because it's crowdsourced data where by going to speedtest.ky.gov, 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 right, you take a test for 30 seconds and you log what your speeds are. And so what that's going to do is it's going to plot it on a map so that your local officials and your local internet service providers or new interested internet service providers can then look at that data and see a business case on a map of where unserved, underserved communities are, right? So you can point out the areas where internet is needed. And so right now, again, it's not proprietary, but what is reported to the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, right? It's self-reported. So it's called a Form 477. And the issue is it's just not accurate. I mean, it's just the methodology is flawed, and that's pretty universally accepted too, that it's just not the best way to go about it. So the speed test removes a lot of those inaccuracies by bringing it directly to the people and having them report. And so I would encourage anybody listening to this in the Lake Cumberland area, from Pulaski County, Russell County, Wayne County, I know you're pulling from all over the place across Lake Cumberland, Adam, get online and take that test. And here's the thing, if you don't have internet, it's especially important that we hear from you. And it might be a little tough because we ask that you go to a place that has internet but log your address, because when you log your address and you don't have internet, your household shows up as a big ugly black dot right on this map. And that's a big deal too, because those are the areas we really have to get to. So the speed test is kind of our first step into clearly highlighting where the unserved and underserved areas are across Eastern Kentucky. And Adam, that's going to be super important as billions and billions and billions of dollars is thrown at this problem, because we have to have a roadmap for where we're going and where the money is needed. The speed test makes sure that every community's voice is heard as those dollars come down the pipeline, to make sure that their local officials are able to submit applications, grants, internet service providers can take those funds and go out and connect the areas that need it most.
And there's so much good there. So first, just quick, and I don't know, I'm sure there's privacy issues with this, but if there was ever a way for SOAR and all these companies to be able to share data with our public school systems and really identify, hey, these are 80 kids that are in our school system that we know and have logged, hey, they do not have internet access. Here's their address. Boom, here you go. Here's a black dot. Obviously, I'm sure there's privacy issues that will keep it from being that simple. But like you said, too, with this being bipartisan, and I think COVID put a massive magnifying glass on all this, because it's not just our education areas where we terribly need good broadband internet. It's across the board. And so how it's almost every industry, of course, with everybody working from home, obviously, some businesses are going to transition back to going 100% at their office space and whatnot. But you have so many industries that now they're going to change how they do operations forever, where they may never have a central office where everybody comes to. And so I think that's where you've seen, obviously it's just a tiny drop in the bucket, but you've seen an influx of population from California and Texas and all these other, and New York and all these other states that are coming here because they can work their same job, but have a lower cost of living here in Kentucky and still have a great life and still be able to live there. But like you said, have the high-speed internet access is crucial to making that happen. But then even for recruiting new industries, I mean, that's something that's on their checklist of, hey, this is what you've got to have for us to even consider you to round two.
It's Adam, it's hard to quantify just how important it is that we get this right for our region, because if we get it right, it's a game changer on a magnitude I don't think the region's ever seen. And here's the thing, for all the really bad parts of this pandemic, if we really want to be honest, if there's been a silver lining, it's that it gave rural areas like Eastern Kentucky a breath of fresh air in the sense of remote work, right? And the opportunities that come with folks that don't have to live where they work and work where they live, right? With those two things being decoupled.
Right.
There's no region across the United States that benefits from that more than Eastern Kentucky, because all the things that have made traditional economic development really, really challenging in our region, from interstate access, commercial airport access, just topography, all that stuff is still extremely important, right? So don't get me wrong. And we want companies to come here, and we want to get industrial recruitment right. We want our industrial parks to be filled. But with remote work, and if we get connectivity right, that's not the only hand that we can play. And that's a big deal.
Right.
The jobs that we've been after, the high-tech, high-paying jobs of the future, programmers, developers, cybersecurity analysts, right? Salesforce administrators, just go on down the list, just go on LinkedIn, right? And click any company you want and see the roles. I mean, look at Amazon. Look at the roles they're hiring remotely, right? I've got a brother that lives and works in California. If he wanted to, he could find an opportunity now to get him closer back to home. But that wouldn't have been there, right? Because remote work wasn't as widely accepted. But there's tons of opportunity there for people to come to Kentucky, or to stay in Kentucky if they're already here, right? That wasn't there before the pandemic, right? So the point I'm trying to say is, we really should see this as a really huge opportunity to take advantage of, because the idea that no longer it's the only hand that we can play is recruiting companies directly, which, don't get me wrong, is super important, but now we're recruiting people too. And guess what? Recruiting people to move to communities like Pikeville or Somerset or Corbin or Ashland or Moorhead in Eastern Kentucky, Let me tell you, that's something that you can do. That's something we can sell because we offer a really high quality of life, right? And if you couple that with the fact that somebody, as you said, right, can live and raise a family at a lower cost of living while still keeping the same, if not similar, employment, it's a no-brainer. So, I just see these levers. You talk going back to population growth and population. We can recruit people directly to come here and find ways to incentivize them to move to our region, right, into our communities across Eastern Kentucky. And at the same time, from the long term, if we train our kids and our future workforce the right way, we can give them the ability to say, listen, you have the option to stay here by looking at these types of jobs, these types of opportunities. It's not a zero-sum game where you have to look at your kids, and you've got little ones, right? They're going to have the ability to if they want to stay here, to be able to find or do work that allows them to stay here professionally where they don't have to take a step back, right? That's been the issue, is if, before the pandemic or before this remote work thing really kind of came together, it was always like a lot of folks felt like, I want to be here, but if I stay here, it's going to hurt me in the long term for my career goals and what I want for myself. I have to move out, not because I want to move out, but because I feel like I'm being forced to, right? That's not true anymore. And that's a really, really, really big deal if we get that right. So again, but if the connectivity piece isn't there, none of that matters. That's all downstream from connectivity. So that's why connectivity is so far and away our number one priority at SOAR, at seeing it through the best that we can in Eastern Kentucky. Because if we don't, no other part of our blueprint really matters because we don't have connectivity, right? So it's a really big game changer, and it's easy for me to get fired up about it, Adam, because this is an arena where not only where we can compete, but we can win. And you see now, if you look at large metropolitan areas, they're hoping things go back to normal. They want people to get back in offices. They're wanting to do this because, they've been hurting. Now, for the first time ever, they've got their eyes on rural regions across the country because I really feel like opportunities have been democratized. It really has, if you've looked over the past year and a half. So it's just a really exciting time. And we're as bullish on Eastern Kentucky at SOAR now than we ever have been for a lot of those underlying trends that I think are really play to our favor.
No, you're exactly right. Like you said, pre-COVID, there was a stigma that in order to have a career in insert blank, whatever career it may be, that the only way that can be true is if you are in a city such as at the base level, Lexington or Louisville, but at the highest level, maybe a New York or LA or whatever it may be, that in order to get that career path and hit that point in your career, you had to go to a bigger city. And now COVID has shown you don't have to have that anymore. Obviously now doctors, certain very high specialty things, you're going to end up somewhere else maybe, but for the most part, it's not there anymore. And I think that goes hand in hand very well with the second part of the blueprint and training that 21st century workforce, like you mentioned.
Well, it goes hand in hand with that. And just to give another example and kind of transition in, obviously the digital jobs, the jobs of the future, the things that, the internet, there's never been an easier time if you're a small business owner and entrepreneur. The internet gives you access to a market with an unlimited amount of potential customers. It's a game changer if we get it right and we leverage it properly in Eastern Kentucky. I keep saying that, but I'll tell you another industry that we've seen really, really great growth in, and it's probably, well, not probably, it is the number one job creating industry in Eastern Kentucky is healthcare. And so for a lot of folks listening to this, if you have high school kids that aren't sure exactly what they want to do, or maybe middle schoolers that are 7th, 8th grade, I tell you what, it has shocked me to see the need for nurses, registered nurses across Eastern Kentucky. And if you go to any hospital CEO across the region, many of them can hire 100 plus nurses on the spot. And this is a job that pays 60 to 70 grand a year with full benefits.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about a region, and we need jobs and we need more opportunities, but we've got some real low hanging fruit. Nursing is one perfect example because, healthcare, you have replacement jobs and new expected jobs. And so, nursing is just some really low hanging fruit that we need people. We need more nurses to be sourced domestically, right, to fill the demand from local hospitals and then all the other places, like assisted living facilities. And if we don't fill those with people domestically, it's just people don't stay here, right? We have a lot of hospitals in Eastern Kentucky that have used travel nurses, and we needed people this year, right? But it's putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound because travel nurses are only here for a short amount of time and then they leave. We've got to be able to meet that demand domestically by making sure that we tell kids and show them that pathway early on, that listen, if you want to be a nurse, the Eastern Kentucky is a great place to be a nurse, and you're needed, right? And you can stay here and do all those things. So I did want to give a shout out to healthcare as well, because there's tons of opportunity in healthcare across our region. But I think the 21st century workforce, as you mentioned, Adam, I think it revolves around how we leverage the internet, right, and the skills that are required to be successful in an online presence and in the digital tools that are required there. I think it goes back to a lot of the jobs that we see that are able to be done remotely. I mean, programming, developing, the UI, right? Your user interface skills, the ability to produce a podcast, design work, graphic design work, audio, video. How do you leverage the internet to tell your story, to sell a product? I mean, it's all those things. And so if we're thinking about what the future looks like for our workforce and our kids, if they're not able to properly leverage the internet, I just feel like it's going to be tough for them to get ahead, right? And so, but if we get that right, the opportunities are endless, right? And so I think that the 21st century workforce, it is completely hinges on the digital toolkit, the digital arsenal that we're able to equip our kids with. And that's going to directly correlate to how successful they are in their careers moving forward.
No, I mean, you're exactly right too. And even with nurses, even with telehealth. I mean, like I said, being able to leverage technology and being able to use that effectively. I mean, you could be, obviously COVID kind of amplified that too. And I think we'll see a significant increase in the usage of telehealth moving forward too, and having that. But I mean, like I mentioned jokingly about attending an insurance conference last week, one of the big things we talked about is recruiting talent. And obviously we want to hire someone here local if we want to bring someone into our office, but maybe that best talented individual is in Hazard. Well, because of technology, they could stay in Hazard, work remotely in Hazard, just like they're a member right here in our own office. But like you said, it's a matter of training the workforce so that can be possible. And
it just comes down to the skills that are in demand. Adam, and I think we've, you've got great opportunities. We have great partners. Our KCTCS, our community college and vocational schools. It's crazy to see some of the high tech programs they have. Things like robotics and advanced manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, and it's more possible now than ever to be able to spend a year and a half, 2 years, a short amount of time with a very targeted, specific program to get a certificate or diploma that's industry recognized, and be able to graduate, find work immediately, make a great living, and come out debt free. I mean, I feel like the Work Ready Scholarship, some of the programs that our community colleges have, they don't get near enough credit. I mean, listen, I went to a 4-year university, right? I think you did as well. It's not which one's right or wrong. It's all about what's in the best interest of the kid that's about to go into that program. And now more than ever, it's good to think about all the different options, because there's a ton of different ways to find success and ultimately to make a living, make money, to give you that ability to do other things that we need you to do, which is to bring your family here, raise a family, grow a family, and lay roots in Eastern Kentucky. And so, but again, connectivity. If we continue to miss on that front, then our opportunity window of opportunity, it's going to shrink, and ultimately, our kids aren't going to have the same access to what kids from other parts of the country are going to.
Yeah. Talking about that too. And so I'm going to consider myself uneducated on this part, and more so just have read an article here and there. Have you, and this may have been a year or two ago, but there was talk about helping former coal miners learn how to code digitally. Have you seen any of that going on there? And
well, we've got a great partner in a company called BitSource that's here in Pikeville that has done that. And there's certain things that laid off coal miners that come more naturally to them than others. From what I've heard, in programming was one of those things that, for whatever reason, they took well to. So I think obviously we're, I always think about two buckets in Eastern Kentucky. We're always going to have a population of adults where you have to reskill and uptool, and it's going to be really important to do that. I mean, nursing's a great example. We've got a great partner in a nursing school, Galen College of Nursing in Hazard, Kentucky, that they focus on that bucket of people going out and finding folks that are maybe in a later stage of life where they've got kids, they've dropped out, whatever the case is, to get them back in, to give them a career again and support them with all the necessary services, the ecosystem around them, from transport, childcare. We're always going to need the ability to go out and find older generations and find a way to put them back to needed work. But I think too, though, about our K through 12 kids. And, there's a lot of school districts that are across our 54 county region, right? And if you think about it, is every year there's a class that graduates, right? What are we doing with those kids? What is happening to those kids? I graduated with about 100 kids, right? I would say most schools are at 100 or above. So, I mean, how are we capturing them to make sure that we're giving them an opportunity or a reason or a viable option to be able to go to school or do something here locally, or even if they have to go away, but that we bring them back? I mean, that's where the answer is going to be found, is what we're doing with every class that graduates. Because, right now I would say we've got room to improve. And that's where the gaps are created, is that for, every 100 kids, how many of them are we ultimately retaining? Right. I think those two buckets, when you think about, the future workforce and where the answers are going to come for our region, we've got to think about the kids that we have, but also too, the folks that we have to reskill and uptool into careers so they can be successful. And ultimately, as you said, become part of the tax base that's supporting local retail businesses that has discretionary income to spend.
Yeah. No, and again, I'll credit you guys because the blueprint is very well put together, because obviously you have connectivity, you've got your 21st century workforce, but then also, you hear it every day too, I'm sure, just like I do. Our small businesses, not only do they need employees, they want employees, like they want to hire. And so what are some of the resources and tools you guys have that you all are using to help prop up our small businesses and help them grow, help them expand?
Well, we've got, through a great partnership with the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development and through the Kentucky Innovation Center, we have, we're the RISE hub for Kentucky Innovation. And so I've got a team of 5 total that are spread throughout 42 of our 54 counties that are dedicated to exactly that, which is serving Eastern Kentucky small business owners and entrepreneurs, whether they have an existing business or they want to open up a business. And so kind of going back to SOAR, who SOAR is, we're a catalyst, we're a convener, we connect the dots, and that team does exactly that for small business owners and entrepreneurs, whether that's connecting them with folks that are doing similar type work and are solving a problem in a different way than another group has been, connecting them with grants, loans, funding opportunities, connecting them with folks that provide services in our region. Maybe it's digital marketing, maybe it's email marketing, maybe it's website development, maybe it's insurance, right, or banking, right, whatever the need is we try to be an organization that opens doors and really just try to get people to think of us as a small business clearinghouse. You're not exactly sure what you need or where to go, find us, right, because we've got a dedicated team that's looking to help out. And so, all their information can be found, soar-ky.org. I'm sure you'll ask for where you can find this information. Adam, I'm proud. We just released a brand new website. I'm really, really proud. It's been a lot of teamwork to get it up to the point, but we highlight our SOAR Innovation team and some of the resources they provide. We're also in the middle. We've got the first 2 parts done, but we're going to publish an ebook. It's a complete guide to entrepreneurship in Eastern Kentucky. So, we kind of put it out in the stages of a business, from planning and launching to growing to maintaining and optimizing to ultimately what's the exit plan. And so, if you're an existing small business owner or thinking about opening up a small business or a manufacturer, I don't care how big or how small, we have this really awesome comprehensive ebook that sets out to kind of talk about the entrepreneurial journey and some best practices to be able to kind of gauge yourself and give yourself a checklist for things that you need to do. So, these are people, this team that I have, They're in the region every day. They're hitting the pavement as we get back to normal, and they're building the relationships across the region to make sure that folks understand that we're here for you. We want you to open up a business here. And then once you open it up, we want to be here, with you hand in hand, making sure that you're successful because, listen, we've got as much skin in the game in it as you do. I mean, maybe not as much because it's your business, but we need you to be as successful as possible for the future growth of Eastern Kentucky as well. So I would encourage folks to go to our website, soar-ky.org, to find out more information on that team.
That was one of the things I had on my list to talk to you about was that SOAR Innovation Hub, because I checked out your website. I mean, obviously today and other times as well, but it's very well done, and I'll have that in the show notes too for people to check out. There's a lot of great resources in there with the ebook you mentioned there. There's a lot more great information coming too. For sake of our time here, there's a lot of great more points here within this blueprint. We talking about healthy communities, industrial development, regional food systems. I mean, obviously App Harvest is one of the biggest highlights of the area.
Yeah.
But one area that, Kentucky for years has been primed to just knock this part out of the park, and COVID, I think, helped it. And that's tourism. I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Obviously we have Lake Cumberland, but there's so much there's parks and everything else. Eastern Kentucky just has so many outdoor activities that you can just, spend weeks at if you wanted to try to hit everything you wanted to hit. So talk to us a little bit about that and what you guys are doing to help to promote from a tourism aspect.
Well, it's some more low-hanging fruit, Adam. I'll tell you that, and I'll give you a stat. So the ARC, the Appalachian Regional Commission, right? So which is the federal state partnership kind of federal organization that supports all of Appalachia. There's 420 counties that belong to the Appalachian Regional Commission. Kentucky's got 54. It was a $60 billion a year industry last year in those 420 counties, tourism alone. But about 85% of that revenue was concentrated in 3 areas across Appalachia. I bet you could probably guess 2 of them: Gatlinburg, Asheville, and Pittsburgh, right? It's a big opportunity for us because, listen, I've been to Asheville and Gatlinburg. I think they're both very, very nice. Quite frankly, I say this, about Asheville. I don't know how many different labels you can kind of slap on the same beer, right? But if a place like Asheville can be successful, so can a lot of other places across Eastern Kentucky, right? We just got to get out there and promote it and give people a reason to come. And you said it, we've got anchor institutions. Lake Cumberland, 4 million people a year come to Lake Cumberland, right? The Red River Gorge, right? Millions of people go to the Red River Gorge. And we've got to use those anchor institutions kind of on the boundaries of Eastern Kentucky and think about how we get people to think about coming east, right? We have so many, there are just so many attractions that don't get near the love that they should. The Breaks Interstate Park is considered, is right on the line of Pike County and in Virginia. It's considered the Grand Canyon of the South. I live really close to Sugar Camp Mountain, some trails in Prestonsburg, Jenny Wiley State Park, Buckhorn Lake State Park. It goes on and on and on. And so I think the part where we're going to help is try to work with a partner organization called Kentucky Wildlands. And so I would encourage folks to look up Kentucky Wildlands, which is kind of the regional marketing group that's kind of asset mapping and putting together all that Eastern Kentucky has to offer. But Adam, I think what it looks like is when we get people at Lake Cumberland, we get people at the Gorge, we find a way to loop them in and say, listen, next time you come back, plan on spending 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Here's where you stay. Here's what you do. Here's where you need to eat. Here's a QR code for a discounted price to do all this. All you have to do is sign up. Your lodging, everything's going to be, we have to make it as easy as possible for people and just tell them what to do. And if we get out and we fight for people that way, they're going to do it. They're already coming in droves. You can't get on a campground. You can't hiking and kayaking, all the stuff that we have to offer. That's what people want right now. Right. So we've got to get out there and fight for them. And I think if we plan it smartly and of how we go out and we acquire them, it's not going to take too much to convince them to come, because we live in one of the most beautiful parts of the world. And we just have to get out there and tell that story. So I think that's what SOAR's role is going to be, is working alongside partners like Kentucky Wildlands and our local and community tourism groups to make sure that their story's heard and that we're savvy in the digital tools that we use to get out and make it as easy as possible for people to explore Eastern Kentucky, to stay in Eastern Kentucky, to interact with our people, and to support our local restaurants and small businesses. Because listen, if they're going to Gatlinburg and Asheville, they'll come to Eastern Kentucky too.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. So if I leave my office here and go out on Highway 80 from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I might as well try and find another path to get home, especially on a Friday, because from Friday to Sunday, the Highway 80 is going to be absolutely jam-packed. A lot of it may be the Ohio Navy. They're coming down to Lake Cumberland. But that's the issue. You're exactly right that our community leaders are facing too. It's, hey, we love that you're coming down here and visiting our Lake Cumberland, but how do we get you into downtown Somerset? How do we get you into our hotels, to our restaurants, to our shops? How do we get you to see more than just the lake? And it's not just Somerset. I mean, like I said, it's every county across the 54 ARC counties you guys have too. It's how can you make it, streamline it, and make it easy for them too to come and stay back for 3 days, 4 days, and stay longer and see more of what these communities have to offer.
Yeah, I heard somebody say I was at of course, not a rally car, but I was at Pine Mountain State Park. Pine Mountain State Park is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Seriously, I mean, it was crazy, and have attract a group through a partner organization called Backroads of Appalachia, but a lot of folks that were coming to do a hill climb event where essentially they get in a competitive type of car and they do a time trial up a hill. And there were thousands of people in Pikeville and Bell County this week. And I heard somebody from Pikeville say, listen, we want people to show up with a thick wallet, and we don't want to take all of it, but we want to take, just leave just a little bit for them to get home and plan their next trip to come back and see it.
I like it.
It's not rocket science, and we have so much to promote and so many assets to leverage. We've just got to get out there and compete as a region and find ways to work together, because if we're trying to go about this county by county, city by city, it becomes a lot harder than when you think about how you say, well, Somerset's got a lake and a great water park. Corbin's got an arena with great concerts, right? Pikeville's got a lot of cultural assets. Bell County's got some of the best trails that you'll ever see. When you start looping together that way, people realize they can see and do a whole lot, and they don't even have to leave the eastern part of the state. Right. So we just got to get creative in how we do that.
No, you're exactly right there. Well, Colby, I want to be a good steward of your time, but so there's one more thing that I want us to hit on, and that's the upcoming the 2021 summit. Talk to us about it and kind of what to expect from it, how to get registered for it, what that looks like for you guys.
Well, you can find information on it at our website, www.soar-ky.org. So we're excited. So, it's we went through the process a little bit different this time, Adam. As I mentioned, we cover 54 counties across Eastern Kentucky. And so we felt like it was important to make sure that every community had at least an opportunity to make their case heard for why they should be the host city for really this keynote event for all across Central Appalachia. And so we put it to bid this year, and we had a lot of great submissions. And so once they were scored, and after discussion with kind of my team and our board, ultimately Corbin was the city that came away with the recommendation and with winning the bid. And so for the first time ever since SOAR was created, the 2021 SOAR Summit is going to be held in Corbin, Kentucky. And so the dates on it are October 13th and 14th. We're also, I think, going to have some programming on the 12th. We're planning on hopefully putting together a regional job fair, as well as we know workforce and available workforce is a really important issue. So I would just have people go to our website, www.soar-ky.org. All the information is there on the summit, but we really hope to pull a lot of folks from Somerset, Pulaski County, London, Laurel County to come to Corbin. We hope this is our most attended summit yet. I think people are going to be chomping at the bit to get out there. And as you said, and people, it was great being at your convention, a fellow insurance folks in Northern Kentucky. We're hoping for the same type of crowd and demand at our keynote summit in October of this year. So just check out our website, and we'll be posting more details as they kind of come to life there.
Yeah, I will. So I'm going to put the website in the show notes, and like we mentioned here, it's for people that are, maybe you're a business owner, you're looking for resources on I mean, literally, like you said, you guys are going to have an ebook soon that's going to help you from the beginning to even the exit strategy of your business. Looking for hiring, looking for maybe you're an employee, looking for different opportunities out there. There's all kinds of partnerships and resources you guys have available.
Yeah, and I would say, and I'll just real quick, another quick plug, Adam. I would say, listen, for people that are looking and listen, we have a link there, and obviously we're always looking for folks that want to support us financially because we are a nonprofit and that's an important piece. But listen, if you want to get involved, donating your time. There's going to be some internships popping up there. If you want to become a mentor in some way, shape, or form, whether that's to a high school student or a business owner, I would encourage you. We've got a link there to get involved at some level. Our work is community led, Adam. We're not going to be able to be in 54 places at the same time all day, every day. Ultimately, again, our role is to be a catalyst and a convener and an advocate, which means that we have to equip our people that live in our communities day in, day out to see that work through. So on our website, if you're interested in getting involved with us in some way, shape, or form, please go there and submit your information. We'll make sure to follow up with you and be in touch.
That was going to be my next thing, just ask you for anything else. I think that just sounds incredible. I mean, that's like you said, you guys can't be 54 counties at once, but if you could deploy some of these mentorship programs and everything else in all these communities, man, I think that's a home run.
That's the plan. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, Colby, obviously it's a long time coming. I absolutely loved our conversation today. So I learned so much just about SOAR, about the opportunities and the resources you guys have there, and really how you guys are pushing growth and to really help our communities and help Eastern Kentucky grow and get that to that level that it's capable of. And I think you are the perfect person for your position, and that you are going to knock it out of the park. No doubt about it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Adam, and thanks again for having me. I've enjoyed your other episodes. I really took to Mr. Cheshire talking about the secret flavors at DQ. I was a Reese's peanut butter cup guy on there, so I'm going to have to say about Mr. Cheshire's order, I'm going to throw in some other ingredients in my blizzard there. So thanks for providing the service to the community and ultimately trying to be a part of the ecosystem, pushing our region and area forward. It's an honor to be here today, and anything we can ever do for you or any of your listeners, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we're here trying to do our best for the region each and every day.